So hello and welcome, I'm Frederick Dunn and this is The Way to Be. Now several of you have been waiting for this. This is the first inspection of my top bar hive, and this comes from Be Mindful. That's Natalie B that introduced me to this hive. And the bees have been in it since the second week of June of this year, 2025. We're in the state of Pennsylvania, northwestern corner of the state. So we had troubles initially getting bees to occupy this hive, but we got them in there and they've been working away. So I've been waiting for a perfect weather day to take a look at them. And this happened September the 1st, 2025. This is the first time I'm looking in on them. So I tried to be prepared. I brought a long knife. We are opening the top bars in the area that is not occupied by the bees for now. And I tried some different things to prime these boards, the top bars, so that the bees would draw them out and of course make their comb. Every comb in this hive is foundationless, so I also brought a very long bread knife with me because I was told I'm going to find a mess in here and they might be attached to the side walls and I'll have to cut them away. So I'm coming from the follower board side. And if I encounter any beeswax that's connected to the sides, I'll just carefully cut it away and then we'll pull these frames up. So right about 78, 79 degrees Fahrenheit, and of course in the sun it's even hotter. So it's a nice warm day to do this. And I'm setting a GoPro Hero 13 down inside so we can get an interior look too. And notice that the housing on that is white. I have wanted GoPro to make a white camera for the longest time because the bees don't care about it. They won't go after it. They won't pay any attention to it. Now you can see that I put a wooden strip there and I put beeswax on that wooden strip. I also just drizzled beeswax on the interior surface without a wooden strip, and I want to see, does it make a difference? Well, we're about to find out. And I'm also going to add some more space here, I think, because we are in the beginnings of a really good aster and goldenrod nectar flow here, which is a really prime time of year for us, and I hope that these guys are doing great. We're going to find out. And that is a redwood follower board, by the way, cycled up from someone's old stack of wood that was there for more than 50 years, if you can believe it. And I'm not using a smoker today. I'm going to use a vape system. So this makes it a little easier. Light it up, off it goes. And I find that the bees react to it in a very mild way. In other words, I'm not going to be slowing them down too much by using this. It's going to just get them to back away wherever I need them to move away from. And then as soon as the vaping stops, they seem to go right back to their normal routine. I like it. So if you want to look that up, it's by Apisalis. They're supposed to have a new formula coming out this year. And I like it. It's convenient. No fire, no heat. Except, of course, where it vaporizes. There's a little element in there. So we'll set that aside. I'm going to pull this follower board off, and we're going to take a look. You're seeing this for the first time, just as I am. So, anxious to see how it's going. That's my long bread knife. It's ready. Cut those things away. Now if you don't use this thing for a while, after 20 minutes it turns itself off. And by the way, the battery lasts me all day on that. Now we open it up. Look at all these lobes of honeycomb. 100% made by the bees. And at first it looks like cross combing, but it isn't. Those are 3 top bars in a row, and it kind of shows us the progression that they make through the hive. Check this out. Not one of them is connected to the side wall of the hive. So that's good news. And I don't know if you'll ever see a better comb, but look at this. I didn't need the starter wooden strips on top. I only needed to drizzle beeswax. And apparently Be Mindful got the spacing right, because these top bars seem to be just the right distance apart. Now look at that. If you did this on a real hot day, don't you dare tip this and have that comb fall off of there. It could happen very easily. I'm just showing you both sides here. Look how narrow and teardrop shaped that is. That's interesting. Also, the cells look pretty darn large. So that's fun. Well, we're starting off in good shape here. I want to make sure and keep these top bars in order. I don't want to change the order. So I'm going to carefully keep track of what side is heading towards me here. And a top bar hive, let me just tell you, this is easy to work. Look at that, there's a queen cell right on the bottom. So right off the bat, not great news for the colony. And I did notice that their activity seemed a little reduced here. That is a perfect little queen cell right on the bottom. Classic swarm cell. And that's what every beekeeper wants, is for their bees to swarm in September. Although it looks like since that cell is capped, they've already swarmed out. So they're replacing their queen. And I don't see a lot of honey here. There's some capped brood. Not an abundance of capped honey, which they're really going to need here really soon. We have temperatures at night that are pretty cold. We've dropped down into the high 30s, 39, 38 degrees Fahrenheit. And then all this week we've got some pretty decent warm weather into the 70s, and it's going to be raining Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so the weather people tell us. And here's another comb. Look how cool that is. I like it. And then we like this particular one. Let's see what's going on here. Looks like there's a wooden starter strip there. So they built off of that. You can see they have some weird shaped, or maybe the starter strip is on the one behind it, because we're looking through the GoPro there. We'll pull it out and I'll give you a closer look. And very easy, by the way, to separate these. The other thing is, as soon as I look at one, I'm pushing it right up snug against the other top bars. And now I'm going to mark them. I have this queen marking pen. It's basically running out anyway, but all I have to do is make any kind of mark on one side, and then I'll know if I get confused later that this is the side that goes towards me. I don't want to shift things around on them, especially once we get into the real brood area here. So the other thing is, having a top bar where they come together and it forms the cover board keeps the bees pretty darn calm. And yeah, you can see I had a starter strip on this one. And by the way, that starter strip, there's no groove. I just sat it on there and I used wood glue. And then they built onto that. And the comb doesn't seem very overly soft. More queen cells, of course. Don't know how that came through very well. Hope you can see it. Multiple queen cells already. Not good news. And not only that, look how far into the hive those are. So they're using basically almost all but those first 2 or 3 top bars from the distant end, the opposite end of the entrance. They're spreading brood through everything. The other thing I'm looking for is eggs and open larvae, and I don't see any, which tells me the swarm probably happened a week ago. So they've been without a queen. The good news is it looks like we've got capped queen cells, so they're going to generate, those are going to emerge from the queen cells, and the general rule of thumb there is it'll take them about 9 days after emergence to get healthy, get stronger, be capable of flying, and then they can go out and mate in a drone congregation area. Lots of capped brood here. That's worker brood. Good news, because they're going to need those replacements to bridge the gap here, because we don't have a lot of time. September is basically it. Look how clean the comb is up at the top. So they've actually been using the lower areas here for brood, and I'm impressed. The edge is another queen cell, of course, and another queen cell down there. This thing is just pregnant with queen cells. Look at that. Not too impressed, but I'm glad they're there. Now, would I go through and smash a bunch of queen cells? Some people say to do that. I never do that, by the way. I leave them all in there, because I think, you know what? These nurse bees, they know what queen they want. And the first queen to emerge, she will scoot around and kill the others. So look at those edges. It comes all the way down to the bottom of the open space inside this top bar hive. Beautiful queen cell. Did you hear that? That was a queen piping inside her cell. She is anxious to get out and get out about doing things. First order business. Kill other queens. Kill sisters. Well, look at that. This is not a mess at all. And look at the bottom of the, top bar hive here. It's clean too. So I have to say my very first inspection with a top bar hive is uneventful. Now often you can turn it on its axis and look at this comb upside down if you want to, although I'd like to share that there's no point in doing that unless you're trying to look inside a queen cell or something like that, because remember, the cells on honeycomb are angled up right about 13 degrees, which means that holding it by the top bar and looking down into the cells is the best orientation for you. Don't flip it upside down unless you absolutely need to. Especially if it's a really hot day. Remember, foundationless, the stuff could just bend and fall right off, but it's not full of honey. This is troubling to me. I don't see any capped honey in here at all. Now there is some nectar in the cells. Again, no eggs, no open larvae. Glad they have queens on the way because they're going to need them. And I'm going to leave these natural. Whatever they do, they do. Now remember this top bar hive setup. There's no configuration here for feeding. There's no top bar feeder that I could find. And if you want to see my interview with Natalie B, please go down in the video description and I'll give you a link to that, where she talks about the concept, the angles they came up with, and why this design is the way it is. And so it's pretty much for those who want to be natural beekeepers, kind of hands-off overall. We see a lot of nectar there and some honey that's ripening in those frames. I never say frames, they're just top bars, so combs by themselves. Again, we've got some capped pupa there, so some workers that will come out. There are also some drones here. So this was a really bustling colony. A week ago there was a lot of activity at the entrance. So I guess I just didn't catch it. Now they've got plenty of room. It's not like they were cramped, but I am going to add some top bars to this when I close it back up because I don't want them to run out of room. But they definitely need to get busy, and they need more honey. They need more pollen. I see no evidence of a queen here, so as I mentioned before, I think she's already gone. It is interesting to see the comb just naturally formed. See the edges. See how calm the bees are, by the way. Remember, all I used was that Apisalis spray there. And we do have some cloud cover that's moving through, so we get clouds and sun. Another queen cell, of course. And look at all the bees on the queen cell. If you want to know which one they're showing a preference for, look at the one that's got all the work done to it. Kind of like a sculptor puts more energy into their favorite piece. These bees are hanging out on top of one of those, and sometimes you'll see them grab the cell and vibrate it with their own thorax, and then they'll get a sound from the queen. So lots of queen cells. If I needed some for something else, this is another problem, right? Look how clean the bottom is, by the way. Well, we can see that, and they're propolizing it nicely. I like that too. There's quite a bit of nectar in here. But on these cold nights, they turn around and they consume these open cells of honey slant nectar. And it's a teeter-totter. Nice full frame though. Look at that. I really wish I could put a sugar syrup feeder on here to give these bees a boost, but I have to bite my tongue. I have to bide my time and sit it out if I'm trying to give these bees a natural chance to do their own thing without me. Another wooden starter strip there. So no difference, I'll just recap that. No difference in starter strip or just drizzling beeswax on the bottom side of those top bars. Keeping them together, of course. Just going to say that again. Keep them calm. And I have to say, this is a zero effort inspection. There's a bench right there. Everything is at a comfortable height, so you can put a top bar hive at any height that's good for you. All the lifting, look at all the lifting we're doing. There's a cheerleader bee grabbing others and vibrating them, getting them motivated. And, again, kind of a colony in trouble, really, when you look at it here, just resource-wise. The brood is unimpressive. Keep in mind, that brood is going to emerge, and then we're going to be 21 days out after a new queen gets mated. So we're a month out. We're looking at October before any eggs are laid by a new queen that gets mated and then are emerging to replace these. So nutrition wise, again, we're looking at the production of fat-bodied winter bees coming up really fast. These queens are going to have to hit the ground running, and whichever one comes back and is mated, we'll have to follow up in a couple of weeks. I need to see eggs in a couple of weeks here, or this colony is just going to fade out. The workers will just run through the rest of their lives. You run the risk without a queen, of course, of getting laying workers 21 days out. So we have to keep an eye out for that. What would I do in a ditch effort here for these bees? Would I put a new queen in it in the 3rd week of September? Judgment call. I just happen to have an extra queen. Maybe I'll get an extra queen out of a swarm or something, but so long as there's swarm cells here and they have the potential to requeen themselves, I'm not going to do anything. But they're not sitting well as far as stores go. Not enough pollen, not enough honey, not even close. Good news though, just as I mentioned at the beginning, we have a good nectar flow ahead, so it's all going to be weather contingent. I mean, it could go bad at any time. We could get extended rain periods. They'll consume their resources rapidly then. We could get really cold nights, because as I mentioned, it's dropped down to 39, 38 degrees Fahrenheit. And that does not help. These hives are made out of full thickness, so 1.5 inch thick stock, and the top bars are nice and thick too, so they don't really need insulation on top. I do think about the sidewalls though, the way they come to a point and the top bar just rests on that corner. That's the thinnest area, which means that would also be the coldest section of the hive, right where the top bars meet the sidewalls. And that may not be the end of the world at all. We're going to wait and see. But no mess, no wonky comb. So I should probably also say that we did spend a lot of time making sure that this hive was absolutely level in every direction. So if you want to know what kind of hive stands we use, they're the Lyson hive stands. They're adjustable. And it's perfectly level. And you can see that we're going to look at that first one there. This is the second frame. So they didn't do anything with the first frame as far as brood goes. They went to the second top bar, and that's where they started putting brood in. But notice the brood extends through all the top bars. That's interesting. This is the first one. Now, if you want to see how I set this up, I'll put a link down to that in the video description, because I had little starter strips of honeycomb that I put in here that were actually pretty old and dry, and they're pretty much, they connected them together here, but they did not do much as far as any resource storage and things like that. So I'll turn this upside down because these are queen cups, and a queen cup looks like the beginnings of a queen cell. What makes it a queen cell? I'm sure you want to know. Well, as soon as a queen puts an egg in it, it becomes a queen cell. So right now they're just cups, no reason to smash them. So we get to see some bee art there. And that's it. and put this thing back together now. So again, we mark them all, and we're going to put them all back in the exact same order, but I do want to put in a couple of extra top bars. Let's get this GoPro out of the way. And the other thing, look at the entrance off to the right here. There are a lot of bees that seem a little upset about the configuration change. In other words, the lid's up. You know, there's new stuff here, so they tended to kind of hover and collect outside the entrance and not want to come in. And those that are coming in, you can see they're scooting across the bottom board there, and they're headed right for the comb. They have to go to work. So I'm trying to see how many of these top bars I can move together at the same time, but the propolis on that little corner there is pretty darn sticky, so I can only move 3 or 4 at once. And by doing this, I just keep the bees from getting up in between them, and it keeps the bees calm while I'm playing around here. This is a calm colony of bees. This is easy bee management, but as I said, if I need a frame of brood, or if I need a frame of honey or something like that, unless I have other top bar hives, I don't have any way to make these exchanges. So, got some bees in between there. It's the advantage of keeping them together. We don't want the bees to get between them. We don't want to hear the crunch of death here. I'm going to squish any bees. Let's just puff them out of the way. And there you go. One thing I wish they would do with these Apisalis little vaporizers, I wish I would make a clip or something for the back of it so I could just hang that on my belt and have it handy and out of the way. Because the broad open area there where you could flip it over and stand it on its own is the off position, the storage position. I need to rethink that. Okay, so I'm adding a frame here, and I'm going to mark it, of course, so that I'll know that this was one that had no work. So I just put an N on it for new. And we'll push the rest of them back in. I do not want them to run out of space, because even though they're queenless right now, they are going to have a pretty decent population of bees in there. I don't want them to continue to plan to swarm. So I put another one here. So there will be a total of 14 top bars. And we'll see how they go. So for those of you who've been waiting for this video, I hope you're satisfied. It is interesting, and I'm leaving that last little paddle there at the very end. I'm going to bring that follower board in too. So I added another one, so that's 15. So 15 top bars, and we're going to leave it closed up. Now this space is the unoccupied space in between, so we can store extra top bars. Makes it super easy if we ever need to expand it. The extra top bars are right here with drizzled beeswax on the bottom of them. Just being careful to snug them all together. I want to make sure they're aligned well. That's all. It's no big deal. Now you might notice there's another follower board to the left, and I'll bet what you didn't know while I was doing this video, because I didn't tell you, is that there's another colony of bees in the same top bar hive, and they are tiny. I'm not even going to open them. So I think they have 5 or 6 top bars over there. And so the way Be Mindful sends you these little shim pieces too, knowing that eventually these will swell or contract or bow or warp a little. Didn't even need my bread knife. So absolutely no mess, no wonky comb, nothing connected to the interior sidewalls. Healthy colony, missing their queen, and new queens on the way. So they'll be fun to watch. I need to do a follow-up inspection here in the next 2 weeks, and we're late in the year. Not super happy about that. All the bees here coming to the entrance. Once they get out of the way, all those that are hovering around will finally come in. As you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top bars on that end colony. So there is a colony of bees in here. They're coming and going and doing their thing, and I'm leaving them alone. They are weak. The fact that they're still alive at all is a tiny miracle, because that was a very small swarm of bees. Now you might be thinking, wait, if they have a queen, couldn't we just open them both up and combine them together? No, because we already have queen cells in there and there would be a fight. And the stronger colony is the one that's queenless. So just shoving them all together, maybe at a ditch effort. Alright, let's keep that in our pocket. Because at the end of the next couple of weeks, if I don't get a mated queen and I don't see eggs, I don't see evidence that they're recovering, I have a resource colony at the opposite end of this top bar hive, and I can just open them up, remove all the bars that are spacing between them, and just push them together. I think that's a plan. So I hope that you'll follow along for the follow-up inspection in 2 weeks, when the weather's nice, of course. If we don't have a queen, I'm going to use this tiny colony at the end that has a queen, and we're going to push them together and salvage the whole thing. Problem solved. Tell me what you think about that idea. So we would just close up the entrance over at this end and push this queen the other way. So that's the entrance. 2 holes. Pretty casual. Then as I walk away, all of the bees that were hovering around suddenly feel like, yeah, he's out of the way, we can go in the hive now and finally bring the resources we've been dying to bring in. And there is plenty of pollen. Here they come. And pollen, nectar, they're in a hurry. They have no time to waste. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Please come back to see what happens in 2 weeks. I'm Frederick Dunn, and this has been The Way to Be.